So you came upon a more accurate diagnosis of SIBO. And if you've ever heard that term before, that's actually an acronym, SIBO. And share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so that stands for Small Intestinal Bacterial Overgrowth. And it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's where you have bacteria where it shouldn't be. We want a lot of that in the colon to help us digest our food, but in the small bowel, it's a bugger. It is a bug, literally. Those microbes, what happens is as you eat, and they ferment what you're eating, especially if it's fibers and fermentable carbohydrates. And that's what produces that gas, right? Why so many people get bloated shortly after eating, and they're like, what is going on here?
Well, and another kind of offset result, and you would know more about this than me, is like, in the process of fermentation of those sugars in that chamber, it can create alcohol.
Yeah.
And so you could literally be drunk, or you could blow over, in extreme cases.
In extreme, and it's funny you say that, but there is that mind-gut connection, right? So some people don't always present with GI symptoms, but they're like, I'm so brain foggy, right? They're like, I can't remember anybody's name. I'm trying to think of a word and it's not coming to my mind. Yeah. So there is that manifestation as well.
And it can damage the liver. I remember hearing a story about somebody who was like, like cirrhosis of the liver, like they were a heavy drinker, and they're like, I don't touch a drop of alcohol. They were just creating it internally from that fermentation.
And left untreated, it can lead to further issues, especially because those gases damage the mucosa in the small intestine, right? Which can then lead to things like leaky gut. And we know that further down the line, again, if that's not addressed, then we're talking about possibility of autoimmune situations happening, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, these kinds of things. So we definitely don't want to get to that stage.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would be the cause? I mean, I'm sure there's multiple things, right?
Yeah, there are, and that's the key point, though. I'm glad you raised that, because it's not a disease in and of itself. It is caused by something else. Right. And people's frustration in dealing with SIBO is that they treat it, they relapse. They treat it, they relapse. It's a very common occurrence to relapse, because if you don't figure out your root cause, that's what's going to happen. But there's literally a list as long as my arm of potential underlying causes. Wow. There is one thing that is the main cause in most cases, which I will touch on at the talk. But yeah, so you really need to kind of examine. It could be structural. Maybe you've had an operation and that's messing things up in there, right? It could be certain medications that you're taking, right? So there's sort of these different areas that need exploration in determining the underlying cause.
Right.